we have one more. We have one more segment. We've got Mr. Mikeul and Mr. Jacob that are going to come in and they're going to help us how to replace bad habits with good ones before we close out. So don't anyone go anywhere yet.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you
perfect.
all.
Oh, go ahead,
For
Michael.
such an Oh, yeah, sorry, buddy. Yeah, one of the things that I found from my mentors was replacing the bad habits that I had. And it's one thing to listen to a mentor, but it's a different one to actually implement what they say. And back a couple of years ago, I was readily smoking cigarettes and things like this and drinking and whatnot. And I realized that this wasn't the path that I wanted to go on. I was chasing these substances to escape something that I had issues with. And it wasn't until I learned that you need to confront these problems at the end of the day because they're always going to be there. No matter what you take, it isn't going to hide that pain, so to speak. And I sort of confronted these issues and started to replace these bad habits with better habits. Instead of sitting there smoking, I'd sit there and watch like a YouTube video of something that was interesting, something that to further my education, my knowledge, to further how I see the world. Trying to replace one bad thing with a good thing, and it takes time. Another one is instead of going for a drink, go for a really big workout session. Push yourself physically. Try and work on yourself because you'll benefit long term from being able to do these types of activities, opposed to sitting there just drinking mindlessly and not achieving what you want because it's short term fun for long term pain. That's all it is at the end of the day. And drinking gets you nowhere besides making a fool of yourself. Yes, it's okay to have an occasional drink on celebrations and special occasions, but there's a difference between having an occasional drink and drinking every day to escape your issues. And for a lot of guys nowadays, we often turn to substances or other things to drown out the noise around us. It could be even binge watching TV shows instead of working on that required thing that will push you forwards. And it takes time to recognize that you might have an issue that you might just need to ask for a bit of help at the end of the day. It's not easy doing it by yourself, hence why we have a group of guys that we can sit together, we can talk about issues, we can check up on each other and say, "Are you okay? Like, is there anything that you'd like to touch upon?" And I'll hand it over quickly to you, Jacob, so you can touch upon any of this stuff if you like, buddy.
Yeah, perfect. For any of you guys that don't know me, hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a 21-year-old veteran. I also played D1 rugby, and I own my own personal training business. And so obviously here today we're talking about replacing bad habits with good habits. And I've experienced a lot of this. I used to be a heavy alcoholic in the military, and I recovered off of that. I've also been smoking weed since I was 13 years old and recovered off of that as well. And there's steps that you can take. They might look different in each form, but it's the same basis of steps that you can take every single time you're trying to quit something. And I think a huge part of that is also understanding what an addiction is. And addictions don't happen in boredom, right? So it's a dopamine response when your body is looking for something or it's bored or it's trying to hide something, then you look for an outside response that's going to cover that up, or it's going to help you with the boredom, or it's going to inflict you in some way that'll prevent you from doing the day-to-day things that you need to be. That's a key part of addiction is it influences and affects what you need to get done on a day-to-day basis. So I actually drew up a acronym that we're going to use here. It's called Improve for my business name, Improve Fitness. And it kind of correlates directly with SMART goals, if any of you guys were ever taught that. Um, and basically, we're going to work through it here. I know Linda sent it out into the chat, so it should be out there. And I want to point out it's important to understand that deleting a habit from your inventory takes effort and constant work, and it's a daily effort followed by consistency and self-discipline. The fact of the matter is, you have to want to beat this addiction more than anything else. Because if it's not in your top five priorities, at least, it's never going to get done, right? Think about the laundry. The only time that gets done is when it's piled up over the bed or on the couch, and you're like, shit, I have to do this laundry right now. It's the same thing with addiction, and you have to make it a constant effort every single day. And it's always going to affect you, right? It doesn't get easier after 2 weeks. It doesn't get easier after 3 weeks. It's a constant battle, and that's okay. So for our first letter here in improve, we're going to hop into identify. right? So identifying the bad habit, right? So we'll use, for me, drinking. Drinking was a huge thing. So identifying I had a problem with drinking, which in itself is very much the first step, right? And then the second thing is going to be identifying triggers. Identifying triggers are going to be huge because if you know what is going to set you off, right? Think of like a fishing trip, right? You go on a fishing trip, you have a couple of beers. That's what happens, right? You go to a bonfire, you have a couple of beers. Like the things that you associate in your memory with that activity, you're going to want to identify all of those because it's going to be able to keep yourself away from putting yourself in situations where you're going to want to do it more. And then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to identify that good habit you want to replace it with, right? So going back to what I was saying earlier about how bad habits usually happen when you're bored, uh, they always happen when you're bored, right? If you have the time to drink, then you have the time to do something else in replacement of drinking or smoking or doing any of those things, right? So the key is tricking your brain into thinking you want to do the good habit way more than you want to do the bad habit. And so for our second letter here, we're going to go into measure, right? Measuring is important at the beginning part of your plan because you don't at all want to go into this thing like, hey, I'm going to quit drinking. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I have no idea how long it's going to take. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm just going to do it. That's not going to help. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to measure how long do you want to stop? What is this addiction? Are you at a point in your life where you need to cut it completely out of your life for the rest of your life? Or are you at a point in your life where you just need to be able to say no? Because those are two different things, right? You can be able to have something in moderation without being addicted to it. And that's a key point in that. And then going back to what we were saying about identifying, right? So when you measure those activities that'll trigger you and you know what they are, you can prevent yourself from stepping into situations or hanging as shitty as it is, hanging out with maybe some really good buddies that love to do the same thing, you know? So going on to our third letter here, we have phase, right? And conquering a bad habit and replacing it with a good habit is a lot of work and it takes a long time. It takes what 27 days to build a habit. So you want to set short term goals that'll help you kind of feel accomplished throughout the thing. Because also relapses happen all the time. We're human, right? It's in our nature, in our fleshly possession to sin, to fuck up. That's who we are as humans, right? So you're gonna mess up. That's okay. That happens. But if we set short-term goals that will allow ourselves to still feel like we're making progress and feel like we're moving in a forward direction, then I think that helps a lot throughout that. An example, if you're drinking, right, being able to go from one full day without drinking, right? Cool. I got one full day done. All right, let's do this next day. Oh, I got 3 days done now. Cool. Let's do a week, right? And you kind of set these little short-term accomplishments that'll help you kind of build up and build up. And it also builds that self-discipline and the consistency. And like I said, you're tricking your brain into thinking that you want the good habit more than the bad habit, right? So when you're doing something every day and you're telling yourself, all right, one more day, cool, we're doing this now. And then after a week or so, your brain goes, oh, wait, we just do this now, right? Like we have this routine. We've been doing this every single day. We don't drink anymore. That's not us. And as soon as you can make that change in your brain, that flip of the switch to where you're like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm done drinking. I don't touch that stuff. That's not who I am. That's when you're going to be able to influence all of your actions, right? Because your brain knows way more than your flesh wants. That's why you're always fucking up because your human body wants something that your brain knows that you shouldn't have. And when you are addicted to something, you've been taking it for so long that you've convinced your brain that it's okay. And the key switch to that is you're changing You're changing the way your brain thinks so that it's back on track. And we want this healthy thing now. This is who we are. We don't do this. And so going on to our next letter, we have R for radius. And this one's really important, get a support circle, get a group of people that are experiencing the same issues. Tell your buddies, hey, I'm doing this. The effect of being like, I'm going to quit drinking and I'm going to tell my absolute best buddy who I would never actually, you know what, screw the best buddy. I'm going to tell my mom. I'm going to tell my mom, one of the most important persons in my life, that I'm going to quit drinking, right? That's going to give me so much more incentive to quit drinking because I know that checkup's going to come text when my mom's like, hey, how you doing? Have you quit drinking? I want to be able, I'm putting more value on getting better by adding more important people into my life, right? And letting them know that my goal is to get better and to hold me to that. And then are kind of following right off the track of radius here, we're going for O for open up, right? That's the whole point of this podcast. That's the whole point for charities like 22 a day, right? Opening up is extremely important, especially as men. We don't, in a lot of areas, have safe places to open up. We either feel criticized or we can't open up because we're the head of the household and we're the person that has to make sure that everybody else is okay, right? And it's important that we have a support circle and a group of people that we can talk to when we are failing, because we will fail, and that's okay. Especially when when it comes to any type of addictions, or I'm switching out bad habits with addictions very easily here, for any of you guys. But when it comes to that, we'll fail. Like that's okay, and you need a group of people around you that'll support you when you do, because you can't do it all. As much as we hate it and you'd love to, you can't. Um, Again, going right off the tracks of the last one there, this next letter is V for vainglory. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I was building this acronym, I had no idea what V word to use. So I spent about 20 minutes looking through a thesaurus of V words until I found vainglory. And essentially what it means is, for any of you guys that didn't know what it meant, because I didn't, it's having a overwhelming sense of pride that makes you arrogant, in a sense. To sum it up, I'm paraphrasing on that one. So the key one to that is putting your ego to the side. That's such a hard thing, especially for men. I know for me as well, is being able to put your pride and the ego to the side and go, hey, I need help. That's a huge part in all of this. Being able to pull up your big boy pants and go, I need help and I can't do this by myself anymore. That's arguably the hardest part of this whole journey. Right. And then your E is the final letter, and that's execute, right? So your go, it's your time to go, right? You can say, oh, I'll start on Monday, or I'll start on the weekend, or I'll start tomorrow, right? If we're going back to the Bible here, the devil's going to use that I start tomorrow bullshit on you the rest of your fucking life. That's just how it is, right? I can't even tell you how many times, down to the simplest thing of a Dairy Queen blizzard. Oh, I'll stop eating these blizzards tomorrow. No, I won't. I get those every night. Come on now, you know? And so execute. You just got to jump in. You got to flip that fuck it button and just hop in and be ready to roll. And I think going back all the way back to what this topic really is about, and it's about replacing those bad habits with good habits, right? It's entirely dependent on the habit, right? Because you can't go and hit the gym every single time you're thinking about having a drink, right? That's not how that works. But there's little things that are situationally dependent. So, like when I quit smoking for nicotine or weed, a big thing for me was I'd smoke while I was driving because I was bored and I didn't have anything else to do with my hands. So for the first week, I took a pen and I bit on a pen right? That's not necessarily a good habit, but kind of finding something situationally dependent, that'll help you, maybe it's reading a book or going to the gym, right? Say, I just read this article that there is this father talking to his son, and his son struggled with pornography, which I think is a huge issue for not all, but most men. And he said, one, never go to the bathroom with your phone, right? So you're eliminating that option, period. And two, even though it's not a good habit, anytime you feel an urge or you feel like you're, being tempted, sit down in a living room with me. You're not gonna do anything in front of your father. And so it's kind of removing yourself from a situation where you really, really want to do the thing that you're trying to erase, and putting yourself in a situation where you don't have an option to do the thing that you're trying to erase, right? Like you're too busy doing something else. I'm reading a book right now. I don't want to drink a beer. I'm going on a run. I'm furthering knowledge. I think everybody on here understands that knowledge is power. So, I mean, go to the library, pick up a tablets for dummies book and start studying, right? It's not the
One
most
thing I'd like
fun
to
thing in the world. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing I'd like to touch upon, Jacob, is a lot of the things that you said are 100% correct there, dude. For me, I had a bit of a different journey getting off my addictions and replacing them because the way I grew up extremely lonely by myself, and I learned that I had to be my own biggest critic and continue to be really
Mm-hmm.
hard on myself because I quit drinking when my body sort of told me to. I started spewing up blood after drinking for days and for years, every day, going back to work and doing the same thing. I sort of realized that this isn't healthy. This isn't what I want to be because I was trying to chase that feeling for so long that you become absorbed in it. And to even want to recognize that you have a problem or ask someone for help, it takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
self-reflection and self-talk. And at that point, when I was younger, I just had no clue. I was young and dumb and just wasn't thinking clearly. And I kept drinking and drinking because for males, we don't have any positive role models, any positive mentors. And it's hard to really look up to someone when there's no one there around to look up to. And if there is, they're so far away. Or it's such an unattainable mentor that you're just like, oh, that'll never be me. That can't be possible. I'm going to continue with this bad habit. And one of the ways in which I quit smoking both tobacco and weed, because I smoked weed from the age of 12, and no, the age of 14, sorry. And it wasn't until I got to the point where I was smoking so much every week that I'm like, what's going on? And I couldn't even walk down the paddock, 6 acres, without getting out of breath. And I'm like, if I want to have a family, if I want to have something of a future, if I want to have a legacy, then I need to start looking after myself now, because otherwise I'm not going to get to that point. Once I started feeling that I can't breathe, I quit cold turkey, both of them, because instead of tempting yourself saying, I'll do it tomorrow, just get it done today. Fuck it. Chuck it all out in the bin. You don't need it. Yeah,
Yep.
you're going to have the temptations. I still have the temptation to smoke because I smoked for so many years, but I soon came to the realization that I'm just chasing habitual habits and it's
Mm-hmm.
replacing that habitual habit. So personally for me, I don't go to a gym. I just do home workouts, just do
Yeah.
body weight exercises, things like that, because everyone has a flaw. Everyone can do push-ups and sit-ups and planks and things like this. You don't necessarily have to buy a gym membership or anything like that. So when you get those feelings of those cravings, or even to watch something on the phone that is explicit, you just be like, no, fuck it. I'm doing like 10 sets of like 5 push-ups or something small, and just giving yourself a break in between. Because if you're not used to it, you just start on your knees to begin with. Because I had to.
Yeah.
I had to do knee push-ups and I've transitioned to full body push-ups because I wasn't looking after myself. And it's trying
Mm-hmm.
to replace those bad habits with good ones. One of the bad habits that I had is my desk in my room. I commonly eat there, but I also work there. And I found to be spending more time pissing around and watching shit instead of actually getting the work done. And it wasn't until I'm like, well, I should replace this habit and go somewhere else to eat it, as to associate something else with that area, because I was finding myself just wasting time. And with what you said about finding the right support network around you, I 100% agree. Like for me, I removed a lot of friends that were just constantly drinking, constantly
Mm-hmm.
smoking, doing bad habits that I wanted to get away from. Yeah, they might be nice people, but it's not what I want in my life. And it's telling them that, like, I'll still be here for you, but I'm not going to be around you as much. Or if I'm around you,
Mm-hmm.
just please try not to drink or try not to smoke and these sort of things. And if they don't want to do that, you sort of distance yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where it was a very hard journey and what I've went through. And your acronym there is 100% correct, what you've said. There are a lot of things you touched upon I had to learn myself because I had no one around me, no one to support me, no one to look up to. I just sort of came to the realization that you need to start to implement these things if you want to become better and push yourself forwards. And it could even be a simple thing of replacing one bad habit of instead of sitting there smoking 24/7, like just writing a little bit of on a book, a little bit like for something for the future, or it could be looking up better jobs or something. It's hard to say because each person's situation is different. And what I've done
Hmm.
is a little unique compared to someone like you. But I also relate with you with the drinking and the smoking and stuff like that because it is hard. You sit there and you get to the point where you're smoking so much weed, you're just like, what am I doing with my life? I'm
Yep.
trying to escape the pain. And my tolerance became so high at that point that I'm like, there's no end to this. I'll be forever smoking. I'd have to have a smoke before I went to go for a walk or I'd go shopping or even go to the toilet to have a few. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like a part of my identity at that point. And I came to the
Hmm.
realization I need to change who I am as a person, asking myself, what do I want to be remembered by? What do I want to be remembered for in life? And those are the hard questions that a lot of guys struggle with is what legacy do you want to leave behind? What do you want to
And
leave
I
for your kids, their kids?
and I think that kind of brings it back to what I was saying in the discussion earlier is every man needs a purpose. You know, if you don't have a purpose in life, then you're gonna spin around aimlessly, digging yourself into the biggest fucking ditches you could ever find. You know, you have a purpose. Some of that's being a father or your work or helping the people that you need. You know, I mean, I could rat off 100 different versions of a purpose, but finding your purpose and then a huge part in finding your purpose is you're not going to be able to find your purpose, you're not going to be able to find a habit that you love, you're not going to be able to find any of the things that bring you joy in life if you're not getting outside, right? Humans aren't meant to be inside. We're natural organic
As the
beings,
common saying
right?
goes, go touch grass. Don't
Go
smoke
touch
it, just go
grass.
touch it. Walk amongst it.
Grounding is huge. My girlfriend actually has a video of me where almost every day this summer when time came, I got out of bed, I walked downstairs, I went and stood in the grass and just let sunlight hit I had my shirt off, just hit my bare chest. I got as much sun in as I could. And I think you're going to find a lot more happiness and enjoyment going outside. And you're also going to find a lot more friends and hobbies and I could keep going and going. It's just a good thing for you to be able to get outside and explore, you know.
That's exactly correct. I could talk about this subject for hours, but I'll let Linda
All day
talk because you
long.
got a hand up there.
Thank you. As you guys were talking, and I was looking to the steps that are outlined in the acronym, thinking about how, we got to start today, not, let ourselves start tomorrow. It got me to thinking, is there a good way to build in some time bound steps, like a 30, 60, 90 plan? So that way, when you're replacing your bad habits with good, I thought a good example was the whole idea. And so instead of smoking, you got your pen, you got your hand, something to do. You could be chewing gum, you could be doing a lot of different things and something like that. But I was thinking, some people do have the ability to say, I'm going to quit this and I'm done with it forever. I've heard of people that have, they're very strong and do. My father was one of them. He said that when he was dating my mother early on, that she wanted him to quit smoking and he just did it. There was no messing around with anything and he just did it. And so that's someone that's used to be in my life that was a strong in making a decision and then going with it. Other times there are, like what you said, is that you might start down with a plan and then you might fall backwards and not have a good day. And I can remember you, Jacob, saying, no matter what, On those days you don't feel like it, you're going to go to the gym and those will be your best workouts. That is true. I found that experience. And I don't know about all of you guys, but being able to put some kind of, I like to do something by a certain date is a little more helpful. So that way I give myself time to practice that new thing, shifting it and changing it. And then like noticing if I say in 30 days, I want to be going to the gym 3 days a week, no matter what. And I look at it on week 2 and I've only made it once. Well, that means I need to change some of my priorities because I'm not meeting what I want to do. Because setting something with some time bound parameters shows you if you're moving closer or away, further away from your targeted goal. And so the only way to replace those bad habits with good ones is to have some awareness and some accountability. And while it's nice that you would have a circle of support to encourage, to motivate, to cheerlead for you, at the end of the day, they can't do it for you. You have to want it that bad that no matter what, you're going to take those steps and do those actions so that you get there. And so I'm just pushing on you guys to share with me if you guys have had like a success in putting something time bound. And if you would share the example so we could get a better idea how it might work for one of us.
I've tried doing time-bound things. I tried it for years with quitting smoking, like tobacco and weed, and it never worked. I'd get to like, it'd be like, oh, I'll quit at the end of the week. And then I would smoke like a chimney until that point. I'm like, oh, well, I may as well just have a couple. I'm not going to have as much. And I'm and indulge in still continuing the habit, but in a smaller amount. And then I just ramp back up because it's only when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change.
Mhm.
If I'm saying that correctly, and that's where I sort of got to that point of I need a change because I don't want to stay the same. I've got to quit. And if you've got a spurt of motivation to quit, take that motivation and do it then. Say, fuck it, I'm going to do it today. I'm not going to do it in 2 days, a week, or a month. Just get it done. Because sometimes when you give yourself a time frame, it's not enough there. Like you say, I'll start going to the gym next year. Why not just start going to the gym tomorrow or today? Like, understandably, if it's a bit late in the night and you can't do that, but get out on the ground, do some push-ups, do some planks, do some stretches. Because everyone has spurts of motivation, and they're like, sweet, I'm going to make a plan to do this. And by the time that date comes around, they don't have the motivation or the discipline to do it. It's easier to say, oh, I'll quit next week, and the next week comes by and you're like, I'm still doing the same shit. Like, you've got to quit on that time where you think that's the pain is the greatest of staying the same because we always become too complacent with saying, I'll do it tomorrow. As Jacob said, you don't say, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it in a week. I'm going to do it in 30 days. You do it now. Like, and it is okay to set timeframes for certain things, but you've got to keep yourself accountable. And for me, I have no one to keep me accountable besides myself. Hence why I had to be so hard on myself just to say, fuck it, I'm doing it today. I'm not going to do it in 30 days. So that's where if you have a support network around you, it is a lot easier to quit, to be able to have a group of friends that be like, well, what are you doing with your life, mate? You said you were going to do A, B, and C, and then why aren't you achieving A, B, and C? So I'll let you hand that over to the Jacob, or so you got something to say, mate?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Mikeul. I think for some people, potentially the timestamp could work. Yes. However, I know exactly like Mikeul said in his example, when I told myself, oh, I'm going to stop quitting or I'm going to stop smoking on Monday, I smoked as much as I livingly could up until Monday. Right. And so you're kind of allowing yourself that gap to just completely expunge. And not only that, but worst off is you're tricking your brain into thinking you're rewarding yourself with what you're doing because quitting is going to be a hard thing, right? So
Doesn't
you're
necessarily have to be
preemptively awarding
smoking either.
yourself. Yeah, yeah,
It could
no,
be
not at all
gambling or
entirely.
watching porn as well. It's at least
Hmm.
any type of addiction, you'll get like you'll binge in that activity as much as humanly possible. Then you'll get to that day and be like, I feel like shit.
Hmm.
All right, continue though, Jacob. Sorry about that, but I just thought I'd touch upon that because it doesn't necessarily like we're talking a lot about smoking, but I've seen people be gambling addicts, I've seen people be porn addicts and stuff like that, and it's fucked.
Yeah. No, it's all the addictions, period. You hit it honestly the same exact way that I was about to say it. So I got no further comments.
So we
Uh,
got a
I,
comment from AK. He's been waiting there. So AK, go ahead.
Yeah, so first off, I appreciate you too for bringing this up. I mean, I love talking about this, and there's just one more thing that I learned from my own mentors, which is the accountability part. And one of the things that why this is so powerful is if you include money in it. So, for example, like let's say you want to quit drinking and you have an accountability partner who keeps you accountable. And let's say if you like indulge in it and you mess up, you owe that accountability partner $50, for example,
Mm.
something like that. Because people are so, I guess, attached to money, and they were like their ego's too big to waste money on it, so they will not do it. It's kind of like a trick to for your brain, the way you put it, Jacob, and yeah, I mean, I think that actually works. So, and then it's not like you're making your friend rich. You can say, okay, I'm going to give this to charity or something, but if you include money in the accountability, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I absolutely love that idea. I've never even thought of that, and I think that's really interesting. I'd actually like to add on to that, where if you were to say you do a budget, because we're all grown-ups, we all do budgets, it sucks. You do a budget and low ball in here, say you spend there's one month I was spending $400 a month on weed, right? Take that $400 you spent on weed and then go out and spend it on gym clothes. Go out and spend it on books. That'd be a little weird spending $400 on books. I love books, but you know, spending it on something on maybe your healthy habit that you're trying to replace it with, it brings the money into the equation, and then it also switches that reward dopamine system into your brain where, yeah, I don't have smoking or I don't have drinking or I don't have my bad habit anymore, but with all of that money that I fucking just wasted, I'm getting all this cool shit, right? And so I love your idea entirely. I just wanted to add that onto it.
And so we've got
And
Eric. Oh,
there's, if I just may to finish it off, just
sure.
to add this quote, that actually all of you guys mentioned today, and it just fits in perfectly. A man who lacks purpose distracts himself with pleasure. So just want to add that up. Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. A couple things really quick. Jacob, yes. And if you take that $400 and you invest in someone else, the return on that will be like, oh, I mean,
Mhm.
beyond comprehensive. I love that aspect. A couple things to add to this. First of all, thank you guys because, addiction gets us, it gets everyone in some form or fashion. I think one key piece is eliminating judgment
Mm.
because the cycle of dopamine, this need for more dopamine, every time we're like, I'm going to quit whatever this is, or I'm going to change this, and then tomorrow comes and I do the thing again, I automatically go into this negative feedback loop that caused me to stay in this cycle anyway. So Wayne Dyer presents it this way of saying, when you do, because it's almost inevitable, when you do the habit again, get to the point where you can observe yourself doing the habit. So you're like, look at him. Speak from, change your person that you're speaking to and be like, look at him. He's smoking that weed again. He's eating that cake. He knows he's not supposed to do, but okay. And then eventually you separate that feeling of attachment through judgment, and it almost like melts off. And so I think that's um like one addition to this. And there was something else, but it's all good. I'm gonna close it off with that.
Yeah, no, I have one thing to add on top of that, if I may.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but it's also, not at all our job as human beings to be judgmental in any way, shape, or form on other people or on ourselves, right? The Bible says that you'll be judged by how you judge others, and that also directly correlates to how you judge yourself. And I can't speak for other people, but I know for myself, I am extremely self-critical, and I judge myself all the time. And that was a huge struggle for when I was beating addiction. Is anytime I were to light up a joint or something, I'd be like, you stupid mother, you're just killing, like you're purposefully turning off your brain so that you can focus on emotions right now. Like, you know what you're doing. You're being a coward. You can't face them. And it's all those like judgmental thoughts that sneak in. That's the devil trying to drag you right back into exactly what you're doing. And so I like being able to separate yourself from the judgment and almost disassociate when it comes to using a type of bad habit and relapsing specifically. All right, quiet game, go.
um, last thing, super quick. The time, putting a time limit on it. To me personally, I think that's not the greatest idea, because how many people here said, I'm going to learn how to ride a bicycle, and you learned how to ride a bicycle on the date that you said you were going to learn how to ride the bicycle. The bicycle happened, the new way of being, the new learning, whatever happened when it happened. And we just allowed, and what we did was put forth the effort until we got to that point. I think by us saying, we're going to do this, we're going to quit this by this date, I think it allows us, it gives us permission to go into these negative feedback loops to Jacob's point of, I'm going to smoke as much as I can up until the hour before. And then what? So yeah, I'm a proponent on time. If you have the ability to say, if I don't meet it by then, have I made progress? Like, that's a different conversation as opposed to black and white, cut and dry. The 4 agreements.
I
love
think
that, RJ.
I think I from me, you, and Mikeul talking, we're kind of beating down Linda's idea here, which is not at all what's happening. But I think if we were to look at a successful example of a timestamp, you would need to have incredible self-discipline, right? Because when you're trying to kill a habit or start a good habit, right? Part of the reason why you do that execution immediately is because when you're even thinking about quitting that habit, you have just the tiniest little glimmer of motivation, right? And think of motivation as a surfboard that you use to get out to some ocean liner a mile off the coast, right? You can hop on the surfboard and there's going to be hard waves and you're going to just go up and down, up and down, up and down. But as long as you grab onto that surfboard immediately, you'll make it out to the ship and you can just have steady sailing from there. Right. And so when you have that immediate motivation, you really want to hop onto that because it kind of boosts you into self-discipline. But in the example of the timestamp, that would be successful, but you'd have to have incredible self-discipline to be able to say, I'm going to do this 3 times a week. And the other half of the week, it's okay not to do it. But on the days that I have set, I'm going to do that. I think that requires a lot of self-discipline because it's really easy for us to say, not go to the gym on Monday. And then Tuesday's our day to go to the gym, but we're not feeling good. We had a long day at work, so we're gonna go tomorrow. And you fall right back into that, all right, I'm gonna do it tomorrow loop.
So I just was reading an item in the chat. And so Mario said, measure and reset. Perhaps the execute could have evaluate included to help people adjust and empower to execute, which is probably where I was getting at when I was saying, a timestamp. Probably what I meant was more of that measuring to see if you're going closer or further away from what your goal is. And so I didn't feel like you guys were beating down anything that I had suggested. I come from a world where, life is a project. And so if it's not time bound and measurable and all the SMART goal things, well, then how do you move from one space to the other successfully and know that you got there, that you arrived? And so that's the only reason why I was asking that, because honestly, when you are trying to create a new habit and do less of another habit, the only way you're going to get there, and you guys all touched upon this, was that you can't be so hard on yourself the moment where you fall back. You can't judge yourself and talk to yourself in a way that you would never talk to your friend or loved one. So that's not going to be any good. And really, at the end of the day, just knowing that you are in progress. We're all a work in progress. We may arrive at a certain point in time, but we're not done. We're never done learning, growing, developing. We're always under construction because that's what we do in life as humans. We're living the human experience. And so we are going to fall. We are going to rise. And it's learning how to navigate as we go. And
You
so
use sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but you use the bricks of your failures to create stairs, and they're never failures, you know? You takes a life lesson out of everything you do when you fail, and those aren't failures, those are progression.
that's right. Because every experience that we have, we can build on that. I want to take this time because I know that we started 3 hours ago. I want to express my appreciation to all of the speakers, facilitators, panelists, and participants, because we've reached where I wanted to today, which is to talk about how we can empower men to be these positive male role models, both in their families, their communities, and leave that legacy that we want to leave, right? Which is to be that person that at the end of the day, you will have lived in the way that was respectful to you. And so you guys are just a testament. We've had some women joining in as well. And again, I don't think any of this journey can happen without men and women working together. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, why I champion every day, why it's important for men to have the support of women in their circle, in their communities, in their families. And so with that, I am concluding our day together, and I'm extending the invitation that this is only the beginning of the conversations, that you might fill out those forms to be a mentor or a mentee, that you'll come and join us in our men's circle, that you will come into another event that we will host. All of those things can happen. Thank you.